We really appreciate Richard Kim coming down from Davis today, not only for driving down, but he's missing his kids' opening day at their baseball league, which I can totally relate to. So thanks a lot for coming, Richard.
Okay. Hello, hi. Well, thank everyone for coming out today. I'd also like to thank Rosalind and Grant for organizing this and inviting me to speak today. It's a great honor to be here and to see some faces I haven't seen in a long time, and look forward to meeting some new people I haven't had a chance to acquaint myself with yet.
I want to thank for the posters that you done at here in the shop. I'm sorry, I forgot to thank for because that was another item that bridge between the Koreans and Asian Americans, Japanese Americans, to bridge them together. I thank you, and I had a chance to thank you enough time. I'm sorry. Yeah.
Actually, I'm glad I'm preceding KW, because after he speaks, you'll see he's a hard act to follow. So I'm glad I'm going before him. As Grant mentioned, I've been working on Chol Soo Lee's memoir for the last 5 years or so, and we're in the process of getting it published. And it's been a lot of work, as Grant gave him some documents. Chol Soo Lee hand-wrote some 800 pages of his memoir over, 10 years or so.
No, over a couple years.
Couple years, okay. So we've been working on transcribing and editing this, and it really just shows his brilliance. And so I really cannot wait for this memoir to come out so that we can share his brilliance with everyone. And so today I was asked to talk about the significance of Chol Soo Lee's case and the Chol Soo Lee movement to free him from prison. And so what I'm going to talk about today is just a brief overview, largely the significance of the movement, but the significance that I gleaned from working on this memoir over the last 5 years or so. And so the historical significance of the movement, of his case, but more importantly than just sort of commemorating this history is why is this important for today? It has great significance for today. So again, I'm excited for this book to come out so that we can sort of show people how relevant this is for today's, especially these young people who were born after 1982. So the Chol Soo Lee movement was the first nationwide political cause to unite Asian Americans. And so this was the first major legal case involving Koreans in the US. But more importantly, the case brought together both immigrant and American-born Asians in a remarkable pan-Asian political coalition. Brought together immigrant, American-born Asian Americans that transcended differences in language, in ethnicity, social class, political ideology, generation. And this represented the first successful pan-Asian political movement in Asian American history. And this unprecedented grassroots coalition to achieve justice for Chol Soo Lee directly led to his release from death row in 1983, which we are commemorating today, 30-year anniversary. And this predates the more well-known Pan-Asian organizing around the Vincent Chin case that occurred in the early 1980s, which is often mistakenly recognized as the first Pan-Asian political coalition. But this, the Chol Soo Lee movement actually predated that, and in many ways provided the basic infrastructure networks for the Vincent Chin case to develop. So the Chol Soo Lee case in many ways provides us a valuable glimpse into a pivotal moment in Asian American history when the Asian American movement coming out of the 1960s, late 1960s, early 1970s, united around one of its first major political campaigns. And a significant challenge confronting the Asian American movement during this time period was how to relate to and incorporate new immigrants from Asia into the movement, new immigrants coming after 1965. Many of these new immigrants from Asia were different economically and politically from the younger American-born Asian American activists. So the Chol Soo Lee case motivated both immigrant and American-born Asian Americans to work together and to consider seriously the potential of building coalitions. So among the ranks of within the movement were student activists, were small business owners, were lawyers, social workers, ministers, elderly immigrants, legal assistance organizations, and even left-wing Asian American communist groups. The movement also generated transnational support from South Korea. So ultimately, the movement that mobilized to attain a fair trial for Chol Soo Lee was the product of a coordinated effort of a truly disparate, heterogeneous group of people, making this an even more remarkable Pan-Asian coalition. So when we think about some of the more well-known struggles of the Asian American movement from the 1960s and 1970s, so the campaign for I Hotel in San Francisco, or the ethnic studies movement at San Francisco State University, in many ways those movements emanated from the radical Asian American left. However, the Chol Soo Lee movement in many ways shows that the scope of Asian American political activism was much broader. And this holds great significance and relevance for today's Asian American communities, given the great heterogeneity of Asian American communities, the American-born immigrant divide that separates many Asian Americans. So this provides really inspirational tale of political, Pan-Asian political coalition building. Also, as Grant mentioned also, the story is also, it's an inspirational story of the politicization and empowerment of young people. So many of the young student activists who were involved in the Chol Soo Lee movement, some of who are here today, went on to lead distinguished careers in public service as community and political leaders. And so the Chol Soo Lee movement provided a catalyst for the politicization of a whole generation of young Asian Americans. It opened their eyes to the social inequalities and the workings of institutional power in US society. And so the grassroots organizing that developed out of the Chol Soo Lee movement produced an enduring vision of social change and of social justice and the possibilities of Pan-Asian political organizing. And this profoundly shaped the lifetime careers of many of those young activists who were involved in the movement at the time. So again, this is something that's inspirational and relevant for today's Asian Americans, particularly today's younger Asian Americans. So while we have the civil rights inspired campaign for justice that unfolded on the streets of America, in the courtrooms outside the prison's gates, the inside story of Chol Soo Lee, the inside story of his experiences in prison, has largely been left incomplete in the historical record. And Chol Soo Lee's memoir really documents, sort of gives us a blow-by-blow account of his experiences in prison and the steps that he had to take to survive on a daily basis, 10 years in California State Prison. So while Chol Soo served as the rallying symbol of racial justice for the Defense Committee, the memoir also shows that he fought for personal survival for 10 years in this parallel world of California State Prison that was almost completely invisible to the supporters outside of prison. And so on the one hand, with the memoir, justice triumphs when the Defense Committee makes civil rights history in succeeding to free Chol Soo Lee. But as you read the memoir, it becomes obvious also that the struggle for racial justice has occurred in tandem with a strikingly different order of moral complexity inside the California State Prison system. So after reading it, you're left with this sort of strange, troubling dual consciousness of these two different worlds here. And so the memoir provides an eye-opening insider's view of the California State Prison system in the 1970s and 1980s. And this was sort of at the height of the racial gang violence within the California State Prison system. And so Chol Soo Lee talks about his experiences as a Korean American, as an Asian American within this climate of the California State Prison system, and makes some brilliant insights about the social ironies of race and class in American society that are still relevant today. So I'll just leave it there and allow KW.
Listen up, he's the information man. Ask questions to him.
No.